Okay, welcome everyone. I'm talking with Scott Barlow from Happen to Your Career. Scott, thanks for joining us, and let's just launch right in, okay? Now, you purchased Zero to Launch through my affiliate link a number of months ago now, and things have changed for you for the better. I know that things are doing well. They're on an upward swing for you, and take me back to before you purchased Zero to Launch, and tell me about what your business was then, because you had Happen to Your Career was your website then, correct?
Yeah, started Happen to Your Career 2 years ago, right around 2 years ago. And, off the beginning, of course, it wasn't profitable. And, you and I were talking in the past, and I was telling you I had a little tiny bit of coaching revenue that was coming in, but mostly it was like hosting fees and things like that going out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I spent right around a year and a half or so before I purchased Zero to Launch. And right before I actually purchased Zero to Launch, I was probably earning about right around $1,000 a month or so.
Okay.
We had a semi-successful membership site that I ended up shutting down. I mean, we were making money from it, but it wasn't very sustainable. Is probably the easiest way to say it. We managed to sell just a little tiny bit, and it wasn't very sustainable. So I shut it down. Shortly after that. But right as I purchased Zero to Launch, I was earning about $1,000 a month. And we had that membership site, and I was really struggling to figure out how on earth I was going to grow the business and what the right way to do that was.
Okay. And tell me about that. Why were you struggling? What was holding you back? What was the challenge?
There's two or three different challenges. First of all, I'd been doing this for a long time, right? And not earning a ton of money to speak of. So there were some of the soft side of it where it's like, hey, I want to be able to show my wife who's, helping me out with the business and all these other things that there's going to be cash flow coming in. I wanted to be able to put out really, really amazing products and information for my customers. And I didn't have a ton at that point, but for the ones that I had and the ones that I knew that I would be able to get in the future, that was a big struggle for me. And then most of all, I really did not have the marketing piece figured out. This is my second business. I owned a contracting business a long time ago, back when I was going through school. And, it's kind of part-time thing. I'd work 9 months of the year and then paint houses and things like that. And it was easy to market that business because I'd show up at people's doorsteps that looked like they needed their houses painted, or I'd pay, my college buddies to do the same thing. And they'd knock on the door and say, hey, do you need an estimate? And that was very, very easy to market. And you've heard the whole thing where it's like, hey, go to where people are at that are potentially your customers. I was really struggling to figure out how to do that right before I purchased Zero to Launch. And actually, I would say that was the main reason. I just couldn't comprehend how that really works, even though I'd had a little bit of success doing it. It was a big thing in my mind, and it was really holding me back.
And was this a big purchase for you?
It was. I spent the first 18 months, quite frankly, not really spending a whole lot of money on myself. And I learned a lot of the things the hard way, and I can't go back and change it. So I'm glad I got some of those experiences. It's taught me other things that I wouldn't have had otherwise. But as soon as I purchased Zero to Launch, it's like, oh my, and my wife, Alyssa, said the exact same thing. She's like, don't you wish you would have had that 18 months ago? And because it really very much steps you through each of those things. So it's not a continuous question about, like, for me, it was the marketing. For me, it was, hey, how do I find where these people are at? How do I know that I am really catering to what their needs? And this is the biggest thing I struggled with. I did, I think, 4 what I would call failed launches, and maybe two other semi-successful launches or ones where I made money of any kind. And those 4, like the things that I was trying to do in terms of writing copy and putting that on a sales page and all of these other things that you do when you are trying to build an online business, they were falling flat. Mm-hmm. And I really didn't know how to do it any differently.
What do you
So,
think you were doing wrong then that you would do differently now as far as like
well,
writing
yeah, and
copy?
that's the biggest. Honestly, you and I chatted a different time or two, and we were talking really briefly about this. But I really think that back 18 months ago, I really would have dug into what people's problems were and understand the verbiage that they're using and be able to literally take that verbiage and reapply it to a sales page. Because now, I mean, I've got all this research and I have hundreds of data points of, post zero to launch. I have hundreds of data points where people have told me and shared with me, hey, here's my problem. Here's why I'm having this problem. Here's in their own words. So literally I'm cutting and pasting all of that information that they gave me, those themes that pop up again and again and again. I'm cutting and pasting that and putting that on the sales page. So I'm getting to speak to them in a completely different way. Same product, same ideas and everything else. But Zero to Launch has taught me to be able to use their language. And I knew that. I knew the concept of using their language. I just didn't know how to get to that. And that was a really frustrating point for me for a year and a half.
Now, you said you shut down your membership site, and you've also developed another product while you were going through Zero to Launch. So tell me about the product that you developed.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's called Figure Out What Fits. And really what it does is it's a video-based course, actually, that's 4 weeks long. And it helps people that are stuck in their jobs be able to decide what on earth they're going to do next and narrow down all these possibilities. And it takes them from the state of overwhelm, trying to figure out, what is it that I need to do? I know that I need to do something. I know that, I don't even know how to narrow this down. There's so many possibilities out there and all of these other things that go through their mind that cause them to feel stuck. And then it takes them through a process to determine what is it that they want in their life and what's important to them and what they value. And then on the other end, they come out with a decision, what we call their next step decision of exactly what they're going to pursue next.
And how did you develop it differently because of knowledge that you'd gained in Zero to Launch?
Well, so two things. One of the things that I was thinking as I went through there, because I had the idea for the course a long time ago, slightly different idea. And it got molded as I went through Zero to Launch, but it's something that's been in the back of my head for a long time. And Zero to Launch helped me actually get it out there into the real world and know that it was actually going to work too, and validate that along the way. But to answer your question, actually seeing some of that course, Zero to Launch, actually role modeled, that helped tremendously in itself. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to purchase it in the first place, because Ramit has some of the best stuff out there available on the market. And I wanted to see what the best stuff looked like so that I can figure out where's my gap and what I was going to make and how do I bridge that gap so that the stuff that I'm putting out is extremely, extremely good and people are perceiving it as such.
Yeah. And what were you doing? Were you doing one-on-one interviews? Were you going to quote unquote fishing holes? Were you doing surveys? How are you gathering information for your course?
Let me tell you how I started at first, and then I'll tell you what was different as I really got into it. So it started with Happen to Your Career and started with the podcast and this whole idea that we wanted to be able to help people move to work that they love. And I made actually a whole bunch of career transitions over the last 15 years or so. And I wanted to be able to teach other people to do that exact same thing and showcase others. So what would happen is initially I started getting emails and, they trickled in a little bit as we started the podcast. And these emails would say things like, hey, the information you're putting out there is great and all, but I don't even know what it is that I want to do. So why am I going to, pursue a job in this way, or why am I going to start a business in this way? I don't even know how to figure it out, what it is that I want to do. So it took me a really, really, really long time. I'm almost a little embarrassed to say how long it took me to actually figure out that, hey, those people were telling me anyways. So one of the things that I discovered through Zero to Launch, and actually you and a guy named Cameron Snow pointed it out to me, that I had a lot of this information right in front of me, But the other places, to answer your question about fishing holes and things like that, where I was going and where I could go, is I started seeing the same types of comments in different forums. I started seeing similar comments on my website. I started seeing reading other people's blogs. I started seeing the same type of comments on there for other blogs that were similar in nature, that helped people that were stuck move to something else. And all of that stuff started adding up over time. And then with zero to launch, it's like, oh, wow, it'd be helpful is if I actually kept all this stuff in one place, right? Sounds so simple, but so I created this very easy Google Doc, Google Sheet actually, and dumped it all into one place. And then once you have it right there, it was very easy to notice those patterns. But I never would have known how to proceed in such an easy format without zero to launch showing me the way to be able to do that.
Oh, very smart. Yeah, that's really exactly what the course kind of gives you that framework for doing. So tell me about what your highs, your achievements have been like now post zero to launch, having taken the course. How are your courses doing now?
So let's see. I've gone through two what I call beta versions of the course, because one of the things that I was committed to is I really want to create something that is the best of its kind out there on the market for this particular product. And there's a few things out there as I learned through some of the research that I did that are similar, but there's not a lot that really serves this exact same niche, which I'm really targeting a very, very specific area of age group, US, primarily female, actually. So that's another thing that really was helpful for zero to launch, actually getting over some of this. I'm afraid to narrow it down is probably the easiest way to say it. And a lot of people go through that. But now, through those couple of beta courses went from about roughly $1,000 a month in sales. And that was up and down. That was sporadic, right? So that wasn't like, hey, you've got this consistent $1,000 coming in every single month. One month it was, 1,100, and the next month is like 200 or 400 or something, right? And now, last month we had our highest amount of sales, which was right around 3,000, just under 3,000. So, nice. And then this next month, I'm expecting that we'll pretty close to double that.
Wow.
But that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
Just looking at what we've got.
Because you're relaunching the course, right?
We're relaunching the course.
Okay.
And I limited the amount of people that were coming into the course too. We only did a certain amount per each time. Mm-hmm. So that otherwise I might have been able to do a little bit more in sales.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Tell me about your business now. Are you excited?
Yeah. So here's the other thing that was really, really very helpful is having that framework, having that, I'm going to call it a roadmap because I don't know what else to call it, John. Feel free to substitute a word.
But, that's a good word, yeah.
Having that roadmap is much easier to see now when I do weekly planning. Like I've got a job on the side, and I'm an HR manager, and I've been doing that for years, and I do about 30 to 45 minutes of planning each week to figure out what I'm going to do for the business. And then I do some longer range planning too. It's now really easy to see like where I need to spend my time to be able to accomplish my goals. Cause I want to leave my job in August, late August. And now it's very easy to see that, hey, if I generate X amount of leads and I then can convert so many of those leads by either selling my courses or another way through my business, then I can see the roadmap for how many people I need to bring to my site, and some of the different ways to get that through blog posts, podcast appearances, other places where I'm going to be able to access my target market. And now all of a sudden it's like, wow, that's really possible. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't seem so far out there now.
So it sounds like you went from anywhere from $200, $400, $1,000 before investing in the course to $3,000 this month, possibly double that this month with or $3,000 last month, possibly double that this month with your relaunch of your course. And the primary value for you was really giving you a roadmap, a system, a framework that you could follow. And go over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what though. So if I were, 2 years ago again, and from the comment my wife had shared and everything like that, looking at it going, man, don't you wish you would have done that 2 years ago or 18 months ago or whatever it was? Um, it it would have been so much easier to save the time and the pain of learning some of this stuff the hard way. Because, I just told you I did four terrible launches, like where I sold like one or two things, or it didn't work out at all to some degree, and fell totally flat because of stuff that I just didn't even know I didn't know. So yeah, I mean, I got tuition payments on that, but truly, in hindsight, I think I would have rather put out some money in order to avoid a whole bunch of that.
And you must have real good determination, because a lot of people would have given up through 4 launches that performed below expectations. So what was it that allowed you to continue on through all of that?
A couple of different things. So, I mean, I run a business that helps people get clarity on what it is that they want, right? And when you've got clarity on what it is that you want, you start to understand the way that you can serve other people and what your value is and your purpose and all the things that go along with that. So, I would probably be pretty hypocritical if I hadn't done a lot of that, but that helps tremendously. If I can, even though I don't know necessarily the way that I'm going to get there all the time, if I understand what the end goal is and what it is that I'm after in my career, and for me, it's being able to spend time with my family, not just for the big things, because I've been really fortunate where I've had jobs that are very, very flexible. And, I've been able to make it for all the big things like, the plays and the musicals and sports and stuff like that. But I wanted to be able to have the flexibility to be there for the small things too. And like you can't really see it, but I've got all kinds of little reminders of my kids or anything, in my office here and in my studio. And those are the types of things that end up carrying me through when I do one of those really terrible launches and just didn't even know what I didn't know, and it goes poorly and I don't understand why. I know that I need to get back up and move on to the next thing because I understand what I'm doing it for. And also the things that I'm good at. And I know that I really thrive on the interaction I get to have now with my customers.
Yeah.
So that's
so true. And you have to allow that to power you through before the financials come in, because otherwise you'll just give up. If it's not something you really care about, that you really want to see succeed, it can be very discouraging. But everyone goes through that. I went through those struggles, and it can be very discouraging. I personally found Zero to Launch has got a number of videos, and it's got the community too, so you can tap into that, which is really helpful. You don't feel like you're going it alone. But the last question I want to leave us with is, what advice would you have for someone who's watching this video and who's considering, whether Zero to Launch is a good investment for them?
I think that the best advice that I could offer is if you do have even half an understanding of what it is that you want and why it is that you want, if Zero to Launch allows you to save a bunch of time in getting there, then it's probably one of the best investments that you could ever make. If you have no clue what it is that you really want and you are not committed to the long haul, then it probably isn't the right thing for you. But I would say that if you understand that you want to build an online business and you understand how it's going to benefit you or your family or the people that are around you, or how it's going to allow you to serve customers in a different way than what you might otherwise with a different choice, either a different business model or a job or whatever else, then I think that it can save you just a ridiculous amount of time. And it's I don't know, I'm kicking myself a little bit. I mean, I don't really regret it. It's just sort of those things that you have in hindsight. I don't regret not purchasing things because I did get a lot of other learnings, but having been on the other side of it and looking in hindsight, all the things that I screwed up, now it makes sense as to why they didn't work.
So true.
Completely makes sense.
Yeah, totally. All right, Scott, thanks so much. And Happen to Your Career is where people can check you out, right? HappenToYourCareer.com.
HappenToYourCareer.com. We also have a podcast. Search Happen to Your Career on iTunes and it pops right up.
Great. All right. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.